The massive space station floated in the void between three star systems, its silver hull catching light from distant suns. Harmony's Edge was the largest diplomatic station in known space, home to representatives from 47 different species. For 15 years, it had been the center of galactic politics, and for 15 years, humans had been part of that complex dance. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the main corridor, nodding to alien colleagues as he passed. The tall, brown-haired human had commanded the human delegation for 8 years now. He knew every species on the station, understood their customs, and could speak basic phrases in 12 different alien languages. Other humans often joked that Jake could make friends with a rock if he tried hard enough. "Good morning, Captain Morrison," called out Thylex, a blue-skinned Villani diplomat. The peaceful species had been humanity's first real ally in the galaxy. "Are you ready for today's trade negotiations?" Jake smiled and gave the traditional Villani greeting, a slight bow with open palms. "Always ready, my friend. How is your family?" "On Velan Prime?" "Growing well thanks to the medical supplies your people provided last month." Thylex's large eyes showed genuine gratitude. "My youngest daughter asks about human children often. She finds your species fascinating." This was normal life on Harmony's Edge. Humans had earned their place here through patience and hard work. They had arrived as newcomers to a galaxy full of ancient civilizations, but they had proven themselves valuable. Where other species might use force or threats, humans talked. Where others saw problems, humans saw solutions. Ambassador Lisa Grant was already in the meeting room when Jake arrived. The 45-year-old woman had silver hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. She had been Earth's first ambassador to the galaxy, and many aliens respected her more than they respected leaders of their own species. "Morning, Jake," she said, looking up from her datapad. "The Korthak want to discuss mining rights in the beta sector again. They think humans might be good mediators between them and the Jorvac." Jake sat down across from her. "That's the third time this month someone has asked us to mediate. Are we becoming the galaxy's counselors?" Lisa laughed. "Could be worse jobs. At least people trust us, to be fair." The Korthak were a warrior species built like walking tanks with thick gray skin and 4 arms. Most species found them frightening, but humans had learned to work with them. The key was understanding that Korthak respected strength, but they also respected honesty. Jake had once told a Korthak general that his battle plan was terrible, and instead of being offended, the general had asked for suggestions. Dr. Ben Carter entered the room carrying a steaming cup of coffee. The scientist was thin and quiet, with graying hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He ran the Human Research Division and had made more alien friends than anyone else on the station. "Sorry I'm late," Ben said, sitting down. "I was in the lab with the Nixari team. We think we found a solution to their energy storage problem." "Another breakthrough?" Lisa asked. "That's the 4th one this month." Ben shrugged modestly. "We just look at things differently. What seems impossible to one species makes perfect sense to another. The Nixari have been trying to store energy in crystalline matrices for decades. We suggested using a biological approach instead. This was why aliens valued human scientists. Humans thought in ways that other species did not. They made connections that others missed. They were creative problem solvers who could find new approaches to old challenges. The meeting room's door opened, and Amy Carter walked in. Ben's daughter was 28 years old, with her father's kind eyes and her mother's determination. She worked as a xenobiologist, studying alien life forms and helping different species understand each other's biology. "Dad, you need to see this," Amy said, excitement clear in her voice. She activated a holographic display showing microscopic organisms. "The samples from the Kepler system are incredible. These bacteria can survive in pure vacuum. If we can understand how they do, we might be able to help species colonize worlds that were previously impossible to live on." Jake watched the display with interest. This was typical human work, finding ways to help others, to solve problems that benefited everyone. Humans had built their reputation in the galaxy by being useful, by making life better for other species. The station's communication system chimed softly. All diplomatic personnel to the main assembly hall. Priority Alpha meeting beginning in 1 hour. Lisa frowned. Priority Alpha meetings were rare, usually called only for major galactic emergencies. I wonder what this is about. They walked together toward the assembly hall, joining streams of alien diplomats heading in the same direction. Jake recognized faces from dozens of species. There was Commander Zix of the insectoid Threx, whose people had been humanity's partners in several successful peace negotiations. Director Ool of the aquatic Mertai swam in his mobile water tank, tentacles waving in what Jake knew was a friendly greeting. The assembly hall was enormous, designed to accommodate species of all sizes. The smallest representatives, like the mouse-sized Piptak, sat at elevated platforms while giants like the rock-based Tormak had specially reinforced areas. Humans sat in the middle section, as they did in most things, finding balance between extremes. At the center of the hall stood the Council of Speakers, representatives of the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. The eldest, an ancient, being whose species had achieved spaceflight before humans had discovered fire, called the meeting to order. Fellow beings of the galaxy, the eldest voice echoed through translation devices. We have received disturbing reports from the outer rim territories. The Zephyrian Empire has been mobilizing fleets and making territorial claims in sectors previously considered neutral space. Jake felt Lisa tense beside him. The Zephyrians were trouble, everyone knew that. They were a predatory species that believed in conquest and domination. For years, the Council had managed to keep them contained through treaties and trade agreements, but rumors suggested they were growing restless. What kind of territorial claims? Asked the Korthak representative, his forearms crossing in a gesture of concern. They claim ancient rights to 17 star systems, including several with established colonies, the eldest replied. Our legal teams are reviewing their documentation, but initial reports suggest their claims may have some historical basis. Ben leaned over to whisper to Jake. Elena Rodriguez is in one of those systems. She's running a joint research station on Kepler Prime with scientists from 6 different species. Amy heard her father's words and looked worried. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was her research partner and one of her closest friends. They had worked together for 3 years, and Elena was like an older sister to Amy. The meeting continued for 2 hours with various species offering opinions and suggestions. The Villani proposed increased diplomatic contact with the Zephyrians. The Mertai suggested economic incentives to discourage expansion. The Korthak, predictably, wanted to send a military fleet to remind the Zephyrians about the consequences of treaty violations. Through it all, the humans listened and took notes. This was their way. Observe, understand, then act. They did not rush to judgment or demand immediate action. They preferred to think through problems and find solutions that worked for everyone. When the meeting ended, Jake felt uneasy despite the careful diplomatic language. Something about the Zephyrian situation felt different, more dangerous than previous territorial disputes. But he trusted the system that had kept peace in the galaxy for generations. Walking back to their quarters, Lisa put her hand on Jake's shoulder. Don't worry too much. We've handled situations like this before. The Council will find a solution. Jake nodded, but he could not shake the feeling that this time might be different. In the distance, stars twinkled peacefully, unaware that somewhere, in the darkness, war fleets were moving toward innocent worlds. The first emergency signal came at 0347 station time. Jake Morrison was sound asleep when his communication device started screaming with priority alerts. He rolled out of bed and activated the display, still half asleep. What he saw made his blood run cold. The transmission was from New Haven Colony, one of humanity's newest settlements on the outer rim. The image was shaky, filled with static, but Jake could see enough. Buildings were burning. People were running and screaming in the background. Massive alien ships hung in the sky like dark angels of death. This is Colony Administrator Kate Johnson calling any human vessel. The woman on screen was shouting over explosions and weapons fire. New Haven is under attack. Repeat, we are under attack by Zephyrian forces. They came without warning. They're not taking prisoners, they're killing everyone. Men, women, children, everyone. The image shifted as Kate ran through burning streets. Jake could see bodies lying motionless on the ground. Some were so small they had to be children. His stomach twisted with horror and rage. They're hunting us like animals, Kate continued, tears streaming down her dirt-covered face. I can see them dragging families from their homes. They're laughing, Jake. They're laughing while they murder our people. If anyone receives this, tell Earth that New Haven fought to the end. Tell them we never gave up. Tell them we tried to protect the children. The transmission cut to static. Jake stared at the blank screen, his hands shaking. New Haven had been home to 12,000 people. Families, children, scientists, farmers. People who had never hurt anyone in their lives. His communication device buzzed again. This time it was Marine Colonel Pete Davis calling from his home world of Riverside Colony. Pete's face was grim, his uniform torn and bloody. Jake, thank God you're there, Pete said, ducking as explosions lit up the sky behind him. Riverside is under siege. 3 Zephyrian battle fleets hit us 2 hours ago. No warning, no demands, no communication, they just started killing. Pete's image shook as another explosion rocked the area. I'm trying to organize evacuations, but they're targeting the transports. They don't want prisoners, Jake. They want us all dead. I can't reach my family. My wife and kids were visiting her sister on the far side of the continent. The communications are down everywhere. Jake could hear weapons fire getting closer to Pete's position. I have to go, Pete said. If I don't make it, tell my brother that I died fighting. Tell him that Riverside never surrendered. The screen went dark again. Jake sat in stunned silence for a moment, then activated his emergency protocols. Within minutes, every human on Harmony's Edge was awake and gathering in the main conference room. Nobody spoke. They all watched as report after report came in from human colonies across the outer rim. Kepler Prime Research Station was gone. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's final transmission showed Zephyrian soldiers executing scientists who had spent their lives trying to help other species. Amy Carter watched her friend die on screen, tears streaming down her face as Elena was shot while trying to protect a young Villani researcher. Green Valley Agricultural Colony was burning. Jake's brother, Alex Morrison, sent a desperate message, showing Zephyrian troops herding human children onto transport ships while their parents screamed helplessly. The transmission ended abruptly when Alex's position was overrun. Paradise Falls Medical Center, where human doctors had been treating patients from 6 different species, was bombed from orbit. The facility that had saved thousands of alien lives was reduced to smoking ruins in minutes. 7 colonies, 43,000 people, all attacked simultaneously without warning or provocation. The reports kept coming, each one worse than the last. The Zephyrians were not just conquering human territory, they were committing genocide. Lisa Grant tried to contact the Galactic Council immediately, demanding emergency intervention. The response was bureaucratic delays and legal procedures. The Council needed time to investigate the claims. They needed to verify the reports. They needed to determine if the attacks violated specific treaty provisions. People are dying right now, Lisa shouted into her communication device during an emergency council session. While you debate legal language, children are being murdered. The eldest's response was calm and measured. We understand your distress, Ambassador Grant. However, proper procedures must be followed. We cannot authorize military intervention without complete documentation and formal hearings. Dr. Ben Carter sat in his laboratory, staring at research, data that no longer seemed important. His life's work had been about cooperation and understanding between species. Now that same research might have helped the Zephyrians target human colonies more effectively. Every biological sample he had shared, every bit of knowledge he had contributed to galactic science, could have been used against his own people. Amy found her father there 3 hours later, still staring at his screens. Dad, we need you in the meeting room. The council is finally ready to discuss our request for assistance. Ben looked up at his daughter with hollow eyes. Elena's dead, isn't she? Amy nodded, unable to speak. Elena Rodriguez had been like family, to both of them. She had been brilliant, kind, and dedicated to building bridges between species. Now she was gone, killed while trying to protect others. The emergency council session was a nightmare of diplomatic language and legal technicalities. Species after species offered condolences and expressed concern, but nobody offered real help. The Villani said they needed to consult their pacifist principles. The Mertai claimed their military was designed only for defense. The Nexari worried about setting dangerous precedents. Only the Korthak representative offered direct support. The Zephyrians have violated every principle of honorable warfare. We should respond with overwhelming force immediately. But the Korthak were outvoted by species who preferred to talk rather than act. The council decided to send a strongly worded message to the Zephyrian Empire, demanding an explanation for their actions. They would also establish a committee to investigate the attacks and determine appropriate responses. Jake Morrison stood up slowly when the vote was announced. His voice was steady when he spoke, but everyone in the room could hear something cold and dangerous underneath his calm words. "How long will this investigation take?" he asked. "These matters require careful consideration," the eldest replied. "Perhaps 6 to 8 months for a thorough review." 6 to 8 months, Jake repeated. "And what happens to human colonies? While you investigate? What happens to the children who are being loaded onto Zephyrian ships right now?" The room fell silent. Finally, a Villani representative spoke up. "Captain Morrison, we understand your pain, but we must follow established procedures. We cannot abandon the rule of law simply because of emotional distress." Jake looked around, the room at faces that had been friendly just days before. These were species that humans had helped, problems that humans had solved, conflicts that humans had mediated. Now, when humanity needed help, they offered only bureaucracy and delays. "Emotional distress," Jake said quietly. "Is that what you call watching children die?" He walked out of the chamber without another word. Lisa Grant followed him, then Ben Carter, then Amy. One by one, every human representative left the council session. They had asked for help and been given committee meetings. They had begged for intervention and received paperwork. In the human quarters of Harmony's Edge, Jake gathered his people around him. They were diplomats and scientists, researchers, and administrators. They were not soldiers, but they were about to become something else entirely. "We came to this galaxy seeking friendship," Jake said to the assembled humans. "We offered cooperation and received trust. We shared our knowledge and our resources freely. We followed their laws and respected their customs. We believed in their system of justice and peace." He paused, looking at each face in turn. "That system has failed us. While our people die, the galaxy debates procedures. While our children are murdered, they schedule meetings." Jake's voice remained calm, but his eyes had changed. Everyone in the room could see it. The patient diplomat was gone, replaced by something harder and infinitely more dangerous. "We tried their way," Jake continued. "Now we try ours." The final diplomatic session began 3 days after the last human colony fell silent. Ambassador Lisa Grant walked into the council chamber with steady steps, but everyone who knew her could see the change. Her silver hair was pulled back severely. Her green eyes, once warm and friendly, now seemed to look right through people. She carried herself differently, like a predator sizing up prey. The other human representatives followed her in complete silence. Dr. Ben Carter, who had spent years laughing and joking with alien colleagues, now watched them with the cold attention of a scientist studying specimens. Amy Carter sat beside her father, her young face aged by grief and something else that made veteran diplomats uncomfortable. Captain Jake Morrison took his usual seat, but nothing else about him was usual. The man who had been known for his easy smile and patient manner now radiated a quiet intensity that made even the massive Korthak representatives shift nervously. He said nothing, but his presence filled the room like a gathering storm. The eldest called the session to order with the same ceremonial words used for centuries. "Fellow beings of the galaxy, we gather to discuss the recent unfortunate events in the Outer Rim territories." "Unfortunate events," Lisa repeated softly. Her voice carried clearly through the chamber's acoustics. Is that what we're calling the systematic murder of 43,000 human beings? Unfortunate events? The eldest paused, clearly uncomfortable with Lisa's tone. Ambassador Grant, we understand your grief. The Council deeply regrets the loss of life. However, we must approach this situation with calm deliberation. Calm deliberation, Jake said, speaking for the first time. Every head in the chamber turned toward him. We've been calm for 3 days while you deliberated. What have you decided? The Murtai representative, Director Uhl, waved his tentacles in what was meant to be a soothing gesture. Captain Morrison, the committee has made significant progress. We have drafted a formal complaint to be delivered to the Zephyrian Empire. We are also considering economic sanctions. A formal complaint, Amy Carter said, her voice deadly quiet. My friend Elena Rodriguez was executed while trying to protect a Villani child. You want to send her killers a strongly worded letter. Yes, the Villani representative Thylex leaned forward with genuine concern. Amy, we share your pain. But violence only leads to more violence. The path of peace requires patience. Ben Carter looked up from the data pad he had been studying. His voice was clinical, detached, like he was discussing a research problem. I've been analyzing the attack patterns. The Zephyrians hit 7 colonies simultaneously across a front spanning 40 light-years. That level of coordination requires months of planning. They had detailed intelligence on our settlements, our defenses, our populations. He tapped his data pad, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. They knew exactly where our schools were located. They targeted medical facilities first. They bombed evacuation routes before attacking residential areas. This wasn't a conquest. This was extermination, planned and executed with scientific precision. The chamber fell silent as aliens studied the tactical analysis. The evidence was undeniable. The Zephyrians had not acted in anger or desperation. They had coldly calculated how to kill the maximum number of humans in the shortest time possible. Commander Zix of the insectoid Threx clicked his mandibles nervously. Dr. Carter, surely you understand that such actions cannot be ignored. The Council will take appropriate measures. Appropriate measures, Lisa said, standing slowly. She walked to the center of the chamber, where speakers traditionally addressed the full assembly. Let me tell you about appropriate measures. She activated her own holographic display. Images of the attacks played silently around the chamber. Human children running from burning schools. Families torn apart by Zephyrian soldiers. Scientists shot while trying to save their research. Medical personnel executed while treating patients. Kate Johnson sent 17 requests for emergency assistance while New Haven burned, Lisa continued. 17 calls for help while children died in the streets. Your response was to schedule a committee meeting. The images continued to cycle. Every alien in the chamber was forced to watch the systematic destruction of human colonies. Some looked away. Others studied the displays with growing discomfort. Colonel Pete Davis fought to save Riverside Colony for 6 hours, Lisa said, her voice never rising above a conversational tone. 6 hours of calling for backup that never came. He died protecting a school full of children while you debated proper procedures. She turned to face the Korthak representative directly. General, Thok, your people claim to value honor in battle. Is there honor in watching children die while warriors debate? The massive Korthak shifted uncomfortably. Ambassador Grant, the situation is complex. Military intervention requires unanimous council approval. And economic sanctions? Lisa asked, turning to the Nexari delegate. How long do those take to implement? Such measures require extensive review, the Nexari replied. Perhaps 18 months to establish proper frameworks. 18 months, Jake said, his voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. In 18 months, the Zephyrians could exterminate every human in the galaxy. But at least you'll have proper frameworks. Amy Carter stood up beside her father. I want to share something with the council, she said. Her voice was steady, but there was something in it that made every alien in the room pay attention. Elena Rodriguez's last words before they shot her were, Tell them we believed in the system. She died believing that you would help us." The chamber was completely silent now. Even the usual background humming of translation devices seemed muted. Lisa Grant reached into her diplomatic case and withdrew her credentials. The small golden emblem represented 15 years of human service to the galactic community, 15 years of patient diplomacy, careful mediation, and trusted friendship. She placed the credentials on the speaker's podium with a soft click that echoed through the silent chamber. "We came to this galaxy seeking partnership," she said. "We offered our knowledge, our skills, our friendship. We followed your laws even when they seemed strange to us. We trusted your justice even when it was slow. We believed in your system even when it failed others." One by one, the other human representatives stood. Ben Carter removed his research credentials and placed them beside Lisa's. Amy followed with her xenobiology certification. Jake Morrison added his diplomatic rank insignia to the growing pile. "We built our reputation in this galaxy through patience," Lisa continued, "through understanding, through always choosing cooperation over conflict. You saw this as weakness, didn't you? You thought humans would always choose the peaceful path, no matter what was done to us." She looked around the chamber at faces that had once been friendly, at species that had once been allies. "Our children are dead while you debate. Our colonies are ash while you schedule meetings. Our people are gone while you draft complaints." The pile of human credentials sat on the podium like an accusation. 15 years of trust, cooperation, and friendship abandoned in a single moment. "You're right about one thing," Lisa said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Violence does lead to more violence, but you seem to have forgotten something important about that equation." She paused, letting the silence stretch until it became unbearable. "Someone has to start it. The Zephyrians started it. Now we finish it." Jake Morrison spoke into the absolute silence that followed. "We formally withdraw from all treaties, agreements, and cooperative arrangements with the Galactic Council. We hereby notify all species that human space is closed to non-human vessels until further notice." "Ambassador Grant, surely you don't mean—" the eldest began. "We're not ambassadors anymore," Lisa interrupted. "Ambassadors serve governments that protect their people. Since you've made it clear that you won't protect human lives, we'll handle that responsibility ourselves." The humans walked out of the chamber in complete silence. No threats, no declarations of war, no dramatic speeches. They simply gathered their few possessions and left. Behind them, the greatest diplomatic assembly in galactic history sat in stunned silence, watching the most patient species they had ever known transform into something they had never seen before. In the corridor outside, Jake Morrison paused and looked back at the chamber doors one last time. 15 years, he said quietly to Lisa. 15 years of building trust. "It wasn't wasted," Lisa replied. "We learned everything we needed to know about every species in that room. Their strengths, their weaknesses, their fears, their capabilities. They trusted us with all of it." Jake nodded grimly. "They're going to regret that." As the humans left Harmony's Edge station for the last time, every alien who watched them go felt the same inexplicable chill. The galaxy's mediators were gone, replaced by something harder and infinitely more dangerous. The species that had spent 15 years learning to trust humans were about to discover what humans were like when trust was broken. The transformation was complete. The patient diplomats had become something else entirely, and the galaxy would never be the same. The first strike came exactly 72 hours after the humans left Harmony's Edge. Commander Rick Stone led a fleet of ships that appeared out of nowhere in the heart of Zephyrian space. The aliens had expected human revenge to be clumsy and emotional, driven by grief and rage. They were wrong. Rick Stone had been a quiet supply officer on the diplomatic station, responsible for managing food shipments and equipment deliveries. Nobody had paid much attention to him during all those years of peace. Now the galaxy discovered that Rick Stone was also a retired Earth military strategist who had spent 15 years mapping every Zephyrian military installation in known space. The attacks were surgical and devastating. 3 major Zephyrian fleet bases were destroyed simultaneously, their defensive systems bypassed with terrifying precision. The humans did not announce their presence with threats or demands. They simply appeared, eliminated their targets, and vanished back into the void. Captain Maria Santos had once been known throughout the galaxy as a peaceful trader, carrying goods between human colonies and alien worlds. Her ship, the Wandering Star, was a familiar sight at dozens of spaceports. Alien customs officials trusted her. Alien dock workers helped her load cargo. Alien security forces waved her through checkpoints without inspection. Now Maria Santos commanded a fleet of vessels that hunted Zephyrian ships across multiple star systems. The traders and cargo haulers had become predators, using their knowledge of trade routes and customs procedures to strike where the enemy least expected. Every shipping lane the humans had traveled peacefully for years became a potential battlefield. The Zephyrians tried to respond, but they discovered something terrifying. About human warfare, humans did not fight like other species. They did not seek glorious battles or honorable single combat. They fought like scientists conducting experiments, testing variables and measuring results. When a Zephyrian patrol fleet tried to hunt down Maria's ships, they found themselves ambushed by forces that seemed to know their exact battle tactics. Every maneuver they attempted was countered before they could complete it. Every weapon they fired was met by defenses specifically designed to stop that type of attack. The humans had been observing Zephyrian military exercises for years through their diplomatic channels. Every war game, every training mission, every tactical demonstration had been carefully recorded and analyzed. The Zephyrians had shown their enemies exactly how they fought, and now that knowledge was being used to destroy them. But the true shock came when human forces began targeting individual Zephyrian leaders. Strike teams led by veterans like Sergeant Tony Blake appeared on heavily defended worlds, extracted specific war criminals, and vanished before local forces could respond. These were not random raids or terrorist attacks. They were precision operations designed to capture the beings responsible for ordering genocide. Tony Blake had spent 8 years working as a security consultant on Harmony's Edge, helping alien diplomats with personal protection and threat assessment. He was friendly and professional, trusted by representatives from dozens of species. Nobody had realized that Tony Blake was also a former Special Forces operator who had memorized the layout of every major government facility in Zephyrian space. The captured war criminals were brought before human military tribunals and charged with crimes against humanity. The proceedings were broadcast throughout the galaxy, showing the systematic nature of the Zephyrian attacks. Evidence was presented with the same careful attention to detail that humans had once used for diplomatic negotiations. General Krex, the Zephyrian commander who had personally ordered the attack on New Haven Colony, was shown video of himself laughing while human children were executed. Admiral Vorth, who had directed the bombing of medical facilities, was confronted with recordings of his orders to target hospitals and schools specifically. The trials were fair, methodical, and absolutely damning. The humans presented evidence, with scientific precision, building cases that left no room for doubt or denial. When the verdicts were announced, the galaxy watched as the beings responsible for genocide faced human justice. Dr. Rachel Lewis emerged as the architect of humanity's most devastating weapon. She had worked alongside Ben Carter for years, sharing research with alien scientists and contributing to galactic medical knowledge. Her specialty was biological systems and genetic engineering, skills she had used to help treat diseases affecting multiple species. Now Rachel Lewis revealed that her years of cooperative research had given her access to genetic samples from every known species in the galaxy. She had spent months developing targeted biological weapons specifically designed for Zephyrian physiology. The plague she created would kill Zephyrians while leaving other species completely unaffected. "You trusted us with your biological data," she explained during a broadcast to the galactic community. "You shared your genetic information freely because you believed we would use it to help you. We did help you for 15 years. Now we're using that same knowledge to help ourselves." The threat of the plague was enough to cause panic throughout Zephyrian space. Their leaders, who had laughed while murdering human children, now begged for mercy as they faced extinction. But the humans were not interested in begging or negotiation. Jake Morrison, now calling himself Admiral Morrison, commanded human fleets that systematically dismantled Zephyrian military infrastructure. Every shipyard, every weapons factory, every training facility was located and destroyed. The humans did not seek to conquer Zephyrian worlds. They sought to eliminate Zephyrian military capability entirely. The attacks followed patterns that alien military analysts struggled to understand. Humans would strike a target, then disappear for weeks before hitting somewhere completely different. They never fought fair battles or engaged in honorable combat. They simply eliminated threats with ruthless efficiency. Amy Carter, working alongside her father, had become the coordinator of human intelligence operations. The young xenobiologist who had once studied alien life forms out of curiosity now used that knowledge to predict enemy movements and identify strategic targets. Her understanding of alien psychology, gained through years of friendly cooperation, became a weapon more devastating than any bomb. The galaxy began to understand something terrifying about human nature. The patience they had admired was not weakness but strategic thinking. The cooperation they had valued was not submission but information gathering. The friendship they had trusted was not naivety but careful preparation. Every alien species that had worked with humans suddenly realized how much they had revealed about themselves. Military capabilities, technological weaknesses, political structures, economic dependencies. All of it had been shared freely with their human partners who had seemed so harmless and helpful. Now that information was being used against anyone who stood with the Zephyrians or blocked human operations. Species that had been friends for years found their trade routes disrupted, their communications monitored, their security systems compromised. The humans were not attacking them directly, but they were making it clear that neutrality had consequences. The Korthak representative, General Thok, sent a message to Admiral Morrison requesting a meeting. The warrior species had finally decided to offer military support to the human cause, but Jake's response was cold and final. "We asked for help when our children were dying," the message read. "You offered us committee meetings. We asked for justice when our people were murdered. You offered us paperwork. Now you want to help us? We don't need your help anymore. We never needed it. We just thought we wanted it." The Galactic Council tried desperately to restore communication with human leadership, but their messages went unanswered. Ambassador Lisa Grant, who had spent years building relationships with alien diplomats, had vanished completely. The humans were no longer interested in talking. Within 6 months, the Zephyrian Empire was collapsing. Their fleets were scattered. Their leaders were dead or captured, and their worlds lived in terror of Rachel Lewis's biological weapons. The species that had laughed while committing genocide now faced their own extinction, and no one in the galaxy was willing to help them. The most disturbing part was how efficiently the humans had accomplished this destruction. They fought like they had done everything else, with careful planning and methodical execution. There were no heroic battles or dramatic confrontations. Just the systematic elimination of everything that threatened human survival. The galaxy watched in horrified fascination as the patient, diplomatic humans revealed what they were truly capable of when their families were threatened. It was a lesson that no species would ever forget. 18 months after the humans had walked out of Harmony's Edge, the Zephyrian Empire no longer existed. It had not been destroyed in a single massive battle or conquered through overwhelming force. Instead, it had been carefully dismantled, piece by piece, like a machine taken apart by engineers who understood exactly how it worked. The new human government operated from a rebuilt facility on New Haven Colony. The settlement that had been the first to burn was now the center of human authority in the galaxy. Children played in gardens that had once been soaked with blood, but nobody forgot what had happened there. The memorial wall listing 43,000 names served as a constant reminder of why the old diplomatic ways had failed. Director Susan Bell stood in her office overlooking the memorial garden. She had been a quiet, administrative official during the diplomatic years, handling paperwork and managing schedules. Nobody had paid much attention to her, which had been exactly what she wanted. Susan Bell had also been Earth's primary intelligence coordinator. responsible for collecting and analyzing information about every species in the galaxy. A communication request came through from the Galactic Council. It was the 15th such request in the past month. The aliens wanted to negotiate, to find some way to restore the peaceful relationships that had existed before the Zephyrian crisis. Susan accepted the call, knowing what they would ask and exactly how she would respond. The eldest appeared on her screen, looking older and more tired than she remembered. Behind him sat representatives from dozens of species, all watching nervously as the conversation began. "Director Bell," the eldest said carefully, "the Council wishes to extend an invitation for humanity to return to diplomatic discussions. We believe there has been enough violence. It is time to rebuild trust and cooperation." Susan studied the alien faces on her screen with the same cold attention she had once reserved for intelligence reports. "Trust," she repeated. "That's an interesting word coming from you. Tell me, how long did it take your committee to investigate the Zephyrian genocide?" The investigation concluded that the attacks were indeed illegal under galactic law. The eldest replied. "The Council has formally condemned the Zephyrian actions and approved sanctions against any surviving leadership." "Sanctions," Susan said with a slight smile that made several aliens shift uncomfortably. "Against leadership that no longer exists. How brave of you." Admiral Jake Morrison entered Susan's office and took a seat beside her desk. The former diplomat looked nothing like the patient mediator who had once walked the halls of Harmony's edge. His hair had gone gray during the war, and his eyes held a hardness that made alien diplomats nervous. "Admiral Morrison," the eldest continued, "surely you understand that the galaxy needs stability. The destruction of the Zephyrian Empire has created a power vacuum that threatens regional security." Jake leaned forward slightly. "Regional security. Is that what you call it when 43,000 humans were murdered while you debated procedures?" The Korthak representative, General Thok, spoke up. "Admiral, the Korthak Republic offers our full military support in maintaining order in former Zephyrian space. We recognize that humans have proven themselves worthy warriors." "Worthy warriors," Jake repeated. "Where was that recognition when we asked for help?" "Oh, that's right. You were concerned about unanimous council approval." Dr. Ben Carter appeared, on a secondary screen, calling in from his research facility on Kepler Prime. The gentle scientist had rebuilt Elena Rodriguez's laboratory as a memorial to interspecies cooperation, but his work there now focused on very different goals. He was developing new ways to identify and counter potential threats to human survival. "Dr. Carter," the Villani representative said hopefully, "perhaps we can restore the scientific partnerships that benefited all our species. Your research has always been valuable to the galactic community." Ben's expression remained completely neutral. "My research is now classified under human security protocols. We've learned that sharing scientific knowledge with other species can have unexpected consequences." Amy Carter joined the conversation from her position at the Human Colonial Defense Headquarters. The young woman who had once studied alien life, out of fascination, now tracked potential threats with scientific precision. Her knowledge of alien psychology had become humanity's early warning system against future genocides. "The Council has prepared a formal apology for the delayed response to the Zephyrian crisis," the eldest announced. "We are also prepared to offer significant trade concessions and technological exchanges as compensation for human losses." Susan Bell stood up slowly, walking to the window that overlooked the memorial garden. "Compensation," she said quietly. "What's the going rate for a murdered child these days? How many trade concessions equal a dead scientist?" The silence on the communication channel stretched uncomfortably. Finally, the Murtai representative spoke. "Director Bell, we understand your anger. But the galaxy cannot function without cooperation between species. Humanity cannot stand alone forever." "You're right," Susan replied, turning back to face the screen. "Humanity cannot stand alone. That's why we're not standing alone." She activated a holographic display showing the current political map of known space. Large sections that had once been marked as independent territories now bore human administrative symbols. 17 former Zephyrian worlds have requested human protection, Susan explained. They've seen what happens when aggressive species are allowed to act without consequences. They prefer our methods of maintaining order, Jake Morrison added, his own display, showing military deployments throughout the region. We've established defense fleets in 12 star systems. Any species that wants to follow the Zephyrian example will find human forces ready to respond immediately. The aliens on the screen studied the displays with growing alarm. The humans had not just defeated the Zephyrians, they had replaced them as the dominant power in a significant portion of the galaxy. This is exactly what the Council was trying to prevent, the eldest said. Military expansion and territorial conquest. You've become what you once fought against. Amy Carter spoke for the first time during the call. We fought against genocide. We fought against the systematic murder of innocent people. If preventing that makes us conquerors, then we accept the title. Ben Carter's voice carried clearly through the communication system. Every species in this conversation had the opportunity to prevent Zephyrian aggression through your legal systems. You chose committees over action. You chose procedures over protection. You taught us that your system doesn't work when lives are at stake. Susan Bell returned to her desk and sat down facing the screen. We're not interested in galactic domination. We're not seeking to conquer other species or expand human territory. We want exactly what we wanted 15 years ago. To live in peace and raise our children safely. She paused, letting that sink in before continuing. The difference is that now we understand what peace actually costs. It costs vigilance. It costs strength. It costs the willingness to act when action is necessary, regardless of what committees and councils might prefer. Jake Morrison stood up, signaling that the conversation was ending. The galaxy is large enough for all of us to coexist peacefully, but it's not large enough for anyone to repeat the Zephyrian mistake. What exactly does that mean? The eldest asked. Susan Bell's smile was cold and final. It means that any species that targets human civilians will discover what the Zephyrians discovered. It means that any government that commits genocide against humanity will face the same systematic dismantling that ended the Zephyrian Empire. Amy. Carter added the final warning. We spent 15 years learning about every species in this galaxy. We know your strengths, your weaknesses, your capabilities, and your fears. You trusted us with that information when you thought we were harmless. We're not harmless anymore. The communication ended abruptly, leaving the Galactic Council staring at blank screens. The patient diplomats were gone forever, replaced by something harder and infinitely more dangerous. The species that had once relied on human mediation now faced a new reality. Humanity would protect itself, with or without galactic approval. In the memorial garden below Susan Bell's office, human children played among flowers planted on ground that had once run red with blood. They laughed and ran through gardens that existed because their parents had learned a terrible lesson about the true cost of peace. The galaxy would never again mistake human patience for weakness. The universe was indeed large enough for all species to coexist peacefully, but it was not large enough for anyone to forget what happened when humanity's diplomacy finally turned to war. No species would ever forget the moment human resolve turned to rage, because in that moment, the galaxy learned that the most dangerous beings in the universe are those who choose to be gentle until they choose not to be.